All right, so listeners, we are diving into something really special today. James Joyce's Finnegans Wake.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a book that makes even like the most hardcore lit fans just shudder a little bit, right?
I can see why.
But we are going to tackle it head on in this deep dive.
Love it.
Our secret weapon. This fantastic article we found called Finnegans Wake for Dummies.
For dummies.
Yeah.
I think I could use that.
Right. Don't worry, though. It's not about, like, dumbing down the book or anything like that.
Okay.
It's more about having some really clever strategies to crack the code of this notoriously tricky work.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive is all about unlocking the secrets and making it surprisingly accessible and maybe even enjoyable.
I like that. Accessible and enjoyable.
Right.
That's the way to think about it.
So let's dive right in.
Sorry.
One of the first things that always jumps out at me is the missing apostrophe in the title, Finnegans Wake.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
What is the story there?
Well, you know that missing apostrophe is Joyce's way of sending us a message right from the start.
Oh,
It tells us that this is a world without boundaries.
interesting.
Think of it like a river that's constantly flowing.
Okay.
No real beginning or end.
Oh, I see.
That's the wake time. Is fluid characters blend together and the end just loops back to the beginning.
So it's like Finnegans Wake could belong to any Finnegan or every Finnegan all at the same time.
You got it. And it really hints at that cyclical nature of the story.
Okay.
It's like history keeps repeating itself, which,
Right.
by the way,
Yeah.
was a huge theme for Joyce.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He saw history as this, like, swirling, repeating pattern.
Huh.
A lot like Finnegans Wake.
That's interesting. And speaking of swirling, the author of this article, we were looking at Seabastian Knowles.
Oh, okay.
He makes a confession right off the bat that I think a lot of us can relate to.
Okay. What's that?
So he's this Joyce scholar, right? Like he's written books on the guy, he's gone to all the conferences,
Well.
but he had never actually read Finnegans Wake.
Oh, wow. That's pretty funny.
It's such a good way to start, though, because it just makes that feeling of being intimidated totally normal.
It does.
Even the experts feel it.
Right. Makes you feel a bit better.
Yeah. And he even wrote this really funny song about his, like, fear of tackling it.
Oh, no.
I love it. It's like, if this guy, a Joyce expert, is scared, maybe it's okay that I'm a little freaked out, too.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
That's when he drops his, like, genius solution.
What's that?
The spiral approach.
Okay.
He basically says to tackle Finnegans Wake like a ski slope.
Okay.
You start with those bunny hills, build up your confidence,
Okay.
and then eventually you hit those black diamonds.
I love that analogy.
That's a good one.
So then what are some of these bunny hill sections for Finnegans Wake?
Well, Knowles gives us a round one reading list.
Okay.
And it includes sections like Mama Festa Riddles, Shem the Penman, and the very famous Anna Livia Pluribel chapter.
Some of those titles are already just like sparking my curiosity. So like, what is Mama Festa all about?
You can think of Mama Festa as a letter. It's like bursting with metaphors for the wake itself.
Interesting.
It even connects back to the illuminated Tunk page from the Book of Kells.
Oh, wow.
You know, that page. It's like super intricate and ornate.
I've seen pictures.
Imagine that, but with words.
Okay.
That's Mama Festa.
All right. So Mama Festa is like the introduction to the book.
Right.
What about riddles?
Riddles is Joyce at his most playful.
Really?
It's a really fun way to get a feel for the characters, the main themes,
Oh, okay.
and the very unique language of Finnegans Wake.
Okay.
You know, I think of it as like a tasting menu for the wake.
I like that. And then there is Shem the Penman,
Oh, yeah.
which sounds a little bit more intense.
It is a bit more intense, but in a good way.
Okay.
It's full of these autobiographical elements, and it kind of seems like Joyce is wrestling with his own legacy in this section.
Wow.
Some people even say it's like peering directly into Joyce's mind,
Oh, wow.
which can be a little scary,
Yeah.
but it's also totally fascinating.
Right. And then we have Anna Livia Pluribel.
That's a good one.
I have heard whispers about this chapter.
It's a fan favorite for sure.
Really?
It's poetic, it's beautiful,
Wow.
and it really shows off Joyce's absolute mastery of language. It almost feels hypnotic, like you are floating down a river.
Now, Knowles didn't just wander through the wake all alone,
Oh,
right?
of course not.
He had some expert guides,
He did.
which he calls the Four Gospels.
I love that.
So who are these four Gospels?
These are four key critical texts that Knowles uses in his seminar.
Okay.
You've got Campbell and Robinson's Skeleton Key, William York Tyndall's Reader's Guide,
Okay.
Adeline Glasheen's Third Census, and John Gordon's Plot Summary.
Wow. Gospels. That's like a big name.
Yeah.
It makes it sound like they hold the secret to understanding the whole book.
Well, they're definitely a central reading if you want to tackle the wake.
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool about these four?
What's that?
They're all from different time periods. So you get a sense of how interpretations of Finnegans Wake have evolved over time.
That's like getting multiple perspectives on a masterpiece painting.
Exactly.
Each one revealing something new.
I like it.
Okay, so we've got our round one sections and our gospels.
Right.
But how does Knowles actually suggest that we approach the reading process?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Oh.
He says we should read Finnegans Wake in two distinct ways, analytically during the day
Okay.
and then orally at night.
Wait, orally, you mean like listening to it?
Exactly.
Wow.
So during the day, you can, unpack the text, look up words, try to piece together the meaning.
Okay.
But then at night,
Yeah.
you just let the sounds of the language kind of wash over you. Think of it like listening to music.
That's kind of blowing my mind. I've never thought about reading a book like that.
It's a cool way to approach Finnegans Wake.
It turns it from like this dreaded textbook into something almost meditative.
That's the idea.
And don't forget the fun part. Knowles talks about how his students made all these cool discoveries while they were reading it.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
They would find like Finnegans Wakeified versions of their own names.
Oh, that's fun.
Or they'd stumble upon these modern day references hidden within the text.
Wait, modern day references in Finnegans Wake?
I know, right? What kind of references are we talking?
I mean, you name it.
Really?
They found stuff like Popeye King Kong, even Hogwarts.
Hogwarts, like from Harry Potter?
Seriously.
That's amazing.
It's like Joyce sprinkled all these little Easter eggs throughout the whole book.
Wow.
It shows that Finnegans Wake isn't just this, stuffy, impossible text.
Yeah.
It's full of surprises, humor, unexpected connections.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay, so what else did these students uncover?
Well, one student even created a map
A map.
that translates the geography of Ireland into the language of Finnegans Wake.
Okay. That is seriously impressive.
Yeah.
And probably super helpful when you are navigating the more complex parts. So we have got a roadmap, some expert guides, and permission to have fun with this.
Right.
I am starting to feel like Finnegans Wake might actually be conquerable.
It is.
Really?
And, the best part is,
What's that?
it doesn't have to be a solo mission.
Okay.
Knowles really emphasizes finding a community of readers.
Oh, like a book club.
Yeah. Or an online group, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because sharing those aha moments
Yeah.
and helping each other through the tougher bits,
Yeah.
it just makes the whole experience so much better.
That's a huge relief because Finnegans Wake sounds like a book that's best experienced together.
It is.
Okay, so we have laid the groundwork. Now, what about these different rounds of reading that Knowles keeps talking about?
Oh, yeah, the rounds.
What new challenges do those bring?
Well, round 2 is where the slopes get a bit steeper.
Oh.
You're going to start moving into sections that deal more directly with HCE's crime and trial,
Oh.
the children's games, and Sean's rather verbose pronouncements.
Okay, hold on. You can't just drop HCE's crime and trial on us like that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For those of us who haven't even dipped a toe into the wake yet, what is the deal with this HCE?
Right, good point. So HCE is like our main man in Finnegans Wake.
Okay.
He is kind of this everyman figure representing all of humanity.
Oh, okay.
Think like Adam, but with a lot more baggage.
And his crime.
Well, Joyce never tells us directly.
Oh, come on.
It's hinted at and alluded to,
Yeah.
but it's never explicitly spelled out.
Of course.
It's a big mystery that drives a lot of the book.
Classic Joyce making us work for it.
He likes to keep us on our toes.
So round 2 is where we really start grappling with these meteor themes and that whole mysterious crime situation.
Exactly.
Oh,
You're also getting into the nitty-gritty of the narrative structure in round 2.
Okay.
And then with round 3, you are facing the ultimate boss battle.
What's that?
Chapter 2.3,
Okay.
otherwise known as the pub.
The pub. I have heard legends about this chapter.
Oh, it is legendary.
Really?
Knowles actually describes it as both a montage and a radio broadcast.
Huh.
Which, if you think about it,
Yeah.
it's a pretty spot-on description of a busy pub.
Totally.
It's this whirlwind of voices and perspective.
Oh, wow.
And tons of linguistic experimentation.
Oh, no.
It's like everything Joyce was trying to do with Finnegans Wake crammed into one chapter.
That sounds overwhelming, but also kind of exhilarating.
It is? It is.
It's like finally reaching the peak of Mount Everest.
Yes. I love that.
Okay, so we've got this round 3 Mount Everest situation.
You do.
But Knowles has prepared us for this, right?
You bet. In fact, he suggests reading The Pub 3 times.
3 times.
Once for each round of reading.
Right.
The idea is that every time you revisit it, you bring a new layer of understanding to the whole experience.
That makes sense. Each round builds upon the previous one. It's almost like that cyclical nature of the book is baked into how we read it.
It is.
Okay, I have to ask about those nighttime reading sessions again.
Yeah.
What kind of insights did those spark for Knowles' students?
They were fascinating.
Yeah.
Knowles talks about how students would uncover things during those nighttime sessions
Okay.
that they might have totally missed in their analytical daytime reading.
Oh, wow. Like what? Give me an example.
Well, they found that the sounds of the language, the rhythm and wordplay, it all took on a whole new dimension when it was read aloud.
Really?
In a relaxed, almost meditative environment.
Huh.
It was like the text literally came to life.
Wow. It suddenly makes reading Finnegans Wake sound less like a chore and more like an experience.
Exactly.
It's almost like going to a concert.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And, some passages that might have seemed dense and confusing during the day suddenly became clear or even funny when they were heard out loud.
That's so cool. It really highlights the importance of not just reading Finnegans Wake, but hearing it, too. It's meant to be experienced with the ear as much as the eye.
It is.
Now, what about those of us brave souls venturing out on our own?
You got this.
What advice does Knowles have to offer?
His biggest piece of advice: patience.
Huh.
You just can't rush Finnegans Wake.
Right.
You have to be willing to sit with it, wrestle with it,
Yeah.
and accept that you're not going to get everything on the first or second or even third read.
That's actually really reassuring. It takes the pressure off a little bit.
It does. He also really emphasizes embracing the humor and playfulness of the whole thing.
Okay.
If you approach it with curiosity and willingness to just have fun, you're much more likely to actually enjoy the experience.
So don't take yourself or the book too seriously.
Exactly. And Knowles also really stresses finding that community.
Right, the book club.
Yeah, that group of fellow readers to share your discoveries and frustrations with.
Yeah.
It's a tough climb, but you don't have to go it alone.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right?
Totally.
We're all in this together.
We are.
Okay, I have to know, what is this Finnegans Wake paradox that Knowles talks about?
Okay, so the Finnegans Wake paradox is this idea that Finnegans Wake can only be read by someone who has already read it.
Wait a second. That sounds like a riddle.
It does a bit, right? But I think I get what he's saying.
Okay.
You need some familiarity with the language,
Right.
the structure, the themes, to really grasp what's going on.
Right. It's not a linear narrative.
It's not.
It's like this puzzle box where you need a certain amount of knowledge to unlock it.
Yes.
But that knowledge doesn't have to come from reading the whole book cover to cover first.
No, not at all. That's where the spiral approach comes in.
Right.
You gain that knowledge gradually, starting with those easier sections and working your way up.
Like leveling up your Finnegans Wake skills.
Exactly.
So the Finnegans Wake paradox isn't a deal breaker. It's more like a challenge to be overcome.
Yeah.
Like, I dare you to figure me out.
Exactly. And the spiral approach is one way to meet that challenge head on.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is starting to make so much more sense. Like you said, it's not just about what you read.
Yeah.
It's about how you read it.
It is.
Okay, so we have talked about the how. Let's get back to what Knowles talks about Finnegans Wake reflecting history, specifically Irish history.
Right.
How does that play out in the book?
Well, that's where the real magic starts to happen.
Okay.
Joyce wove tons of Irish history, mythology, and folklore into Finnegans Wake.
Huh.
And it's not always obvious or spelled out for you.
Right.
But it's there, simmering beneath the surface of the language.
So he created this alternate reality where Irish history is both present and totally reimagined.
Exactly.
That's wild.
Remember that map one of the students created?
The one that translates Irish geography.
Yeah, into the language of the Wake.
Oh, right. That's a perfect example of how Joyce took these real-world places and historical figures and made them into something totally new and strange within the Wake.
He did.
It's like having a secret decoder ring.
It is.
Suddenly, all these hidden layers of meaning start to reveal themselves.
Oh, that was pretty cool.
So, we have got history woven in, but Knowles also mentions that Finnegans Wake is full of metaphors.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like Joyce is giving us clues on how to approach the book.
He is.
What are some of those clues?
Well, one of the most striking metaphors is that comparison to the Tunk page from the Book of Kells.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
I did.
But how is the Tunk page a metaphor for Finnegans Wake?
Right. So the Tunk page is this visual artwork. But just like the Tunk page, Finnegans Wake is a masterpiece of complexity and depth.
Okay.
And they both reward close attention and patient study.
Interesting.
The more time you spend with them, the more you'll discover.
So it's like Joyce is saying, look closer. There's more here than meets the eye.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't try to understand the Tunk page with just a quick glance,
Right.
you can't expect to grasp Finnegans Wake with a casual read-through.
Makes sense. It's a book that invites you to really engage with it.
It does.
And speaking of engagement, Knowles is really adamant that we shouldn't approach Finnegans Wake as just some stuffy academic exercise.
Right.
He talks a lot about playfulness, right?
He does. One of the most delightful things about Finnegans Wake is its sense of humor.
Okay.
Joyce was a master of wordplay puns and linguistic games.
Huh.
He wanted us to have fun with this book.
Yeah, and that playfulness comes through even in like the toughest sections.
It does.
It's like he's saying, hey, I know this is hard, but let's enjoy the ride.
Exactly. And that's why those nighttime reading sessions work so well.
Oh, how so?
When the students relaxed and just allowed themselves to enjoy the sounds of the language, they started to pick up on all that humor and wordplay.
Oh, wow.
They might have missed if they were being super serious about it.
You know, it's like you said before, Finnegans Wake is a book that wants to be experienced, not just analyzed.
Right.
And if you can tap into that sense of playfulness, it becomes less about decoding and more about discovery.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So, if you are feeling a little daunted by Finnegans Wake, remember, it's okay to have fun with it.
For sure.
Laugh at the jokes.
Yeah.
Be surprised by the twists and turns. And don't stress if you don't understand everything on the first go.
Right.
It's a journey, not a race.
It is a journey. And as we have learned, it's a journey best taken with friends.
Right.
Find your community.
Yeah.
Share your discoveries.
Yeah.
And help each other navigate those choppy waters.
Exactly. That's the beauty of these deep dives.
It is.
We are all in this together.
We are.
All right, so I think that is a great place to wrap up part 1 of our deep dive into Finnegans Wake.
Oh, this is just the beginning.
It is.
We have got so much more to uncover.
But this is a good foundation.
It is.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. It's a journey best shared.
Yeah.
And Knowles really structured his whole seminar around these multiple rounds of reading. It wasn't just about like reading sections in a specific order.
Yeah.
It was more about mirroring that cyclical, ever-evolving nature of Finnegans Wake in the learning experience itself.
Oh, so it's like how you read it is just as important as what you read.
Exactly.
That's a cool way to approach it.
And I think that is really what makes Knowles' method so effective. He's not just trying to explain the book.
Yeah.
He wants you to actually experience it.
So we talked about round 1 and those more accessible sections.
Right.
What about rounds 2 and 3? What kind of challenges await us on those slopes?
Round 2 is where things get a bit steeper.
Oh.
You are moving into sections that deal more directly with HCE's Crime and Trial, A Children's Games, and Sean's rather verbose pronouncements.
Okay, hold on. You can't just drop HCE's Crime and Trial on us like that.
Oh, right.
Some of us haven't even dipped our toes into the wake yet.
Right.
What is the deal with this HCE character?
So HCE is kind of our main man in Finnegans Wake.
Okay.
He is this everyman figure.
He's representing all of humanity.
Okay.
Think like Adam, but with a lot more baggage.
Okay, so what about his crime?
Well, that's the thing. Joyce never actually tells us directly.
Oh, no, come on.
It's hinted at, alluded to, but never explicitly spelled out.
Of course.
It's this big mystery that drives a lot of the book.
So classic Joyce.
Yeah.
Just making us work for it.
Keeping us on our toes. So round 2 is where we start grappling with some of those bigger themes and the whole mysterious crime situation.
Exactly. And you are also getting into the nitty-gritty of the narrative structure in round 2.
Okay.
And then in round 3, you are facing the ultimate boss battle.
Which is?
Chapter 2.3, otherwise known as the pub.
The pub. I have heard so much about this chapter.
It's legendary.
What is so legendary about it?
Well, Knowles describes it as both a montage and a radio broadcast.
Wow.
Which, if you think about it, it's a pretty accurate description of a busy pub.
It is.
You have got this whirlwind of voices and perspectives and tons of linguistic experimentation.
Oh, no.
It's like everything Joyce was trying to achieve with Finnegans Wake just crammed into one chapter.
So it's overwhelming, but also exhilarating.
It is.
Like you finally reached the peak of Mount Everest.
That's a great way to put it.
So we have made it to round 3.
Mm-hmm.
We are facing this Mount Everest.
We are.
But at least Knowles has prepared us for
Yes, you bet.
Yeah.
He actually suggests reading the pub 3 times.
3 times.
Once for each round of reading.
Wow, okay.
The idea is that every time you revisit it, you are going to bring a new layer of understanding with you.
Each round is building on the previous one.
Exactly.
So again, it's like that cyclical nature of the book is just baked into how we are reading it, too.
It is.
Okay, I got to ask about those nighttime reading sessions again.
Yeah.
What kind of insights did those spark?
Oh, they were fascinating.
Really?
Knowles talks about how students would find things in those nighttime sessions that they totally missed during their analytical daytime reading.
Oh, wow. Like what?
Well, they found that the sounds of the language, the rhythm, and the wordplay, it all took on this whole new dimension when it was read aloud in a relaxed, almost meditative environment.
Interesting.
It was like the text literally came to life.
It suddenly makes reading Finnegans Wake sound less like a chore and more like an actual experience.
But that's the goal?
Yeah, almost like going to a concert or something.
Exactly.
And some passages that maybe seemed dense and confusing during the day suddenly became clear or even funny when they were read out loud at night.
It's amazing what a difference it makes.
It really does. It highlights how important it is to not just read Finnegans Wake,
Right.
but to hear it too. It's meant to be experienced with the ear as much as with the eye.
Absolutely.
Now, what about those of us who are maybe venturing out on our own with this book?
Yeah.
What advice does Knowles have to offer?
His biggest piece of advice: patience.
Patience.
You can't rush Finnegans Wake. You have to be willing to just sit with it, wrestle with it,
Right.
and accept that you're not going to get everything on the first or second or even third read.
It's actually really reassuring.
It is.
It takes the pressure off.
It does. And he also really emphasizes embracing the humor and the playfulness of the whole thing.
Okay.
If you approach it with curiosity and a willingness to just have fun, you're much more likely to enjoy the experience.
So don't take it too seriously.
Exactly. And he also stresses the importance of finding that community, that group of fellow readers to share your discoveries and your frustrations with.
It's a tough climb, but you don't have to do it alone.
Nope, you don't.
That's the beauty of these deep dives, right?
Absolutely.
We are all in this together.
We are.
Okay, I have to know, what is this Finnegans Wake paradox that Knowles talks about?
Okay, so the Finnegans Wake paradox is this idea that Finnegans Wake can only be read by someone who has already read it.
Wait, that sounds like a riddle.
It does a bit. But I think I get what he's saying.
What do you think he's saying?
You need to have some familiarity with the language, the structure, the themes, to really grasp what is going on.
Right, because it's not a linear narrative.
It is not.
It's like a puzzle box where you need some knowledge to unlock it.
Exactly.
But that knowledge doesn't have to come from reading the whole book cover to cover first, does it?
No, not at all. That's where the spiral approach comes in.
Right.
You gain that knowledge gradually, starting with the easier sections and then working your way up.
It's like leveling up your Finnegans Wake skills.
I like it.
So this paradox isn't really a deal breaker then.
Exactly.
It's more of like a challenge to be overcome. Like, I dare you to figure me out.
Exactly. And the spiral approach is one way to meet that challenge head on.
This is starting to make so much more sense.
Go on.
Like you said, it's not just about what you read, but how you read it.
It's both.
Okay, so we have talked about the how. Let's get back to the what.
Yeah.
Knowles talks about Finnegans Wake reflecting history.
Yes.
Specifically, Irish history.
Right.
How does that play out in the book?
That's where things get really magical.
Oh!
Joyce wove tons of Irish history, mythology, and folklore into Finnegans Wake.
Wow.
And it's not always super obvious.
Right.
You know, he doesn't spell it out for you, but it's there simmering beneath the surface of the language.
So he created this alternate reality where Irish history is both present and totally reimagined.
Exactly.
That's wild.
And remember that map that one of the students created?
The one that translates the geography of Ireland?
Yeah, into the language of the Wake.
Oh, right. That's a perfect example of how Joyce took these real-world places and historical figures and turned them into something new and strange within the world of the Wake.
It's like having a secret decoder ring.
It is. It's like suddenly all these hidden layers of meaning start to reveal themselves.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, so we've got history woven in, but Knowles also mentions that Finnegans Wake is just full of metaphors.
Or it's
Almost like Joyce is giving us these clues on how to approach the book.
like a treasure map.
Right. What are some of those clues? What are some of those metaphors?
Well, one of the most striking metaphors is that comparison to the tunk page from the Book of Kells.
Right. You mentioned that earlier.
I did.
How is the tunk page a metaphor for Finnegans Wake?
Okay, so the tunk page is a visual artwork.
Mm-hmm.
But just like the tunk page, Finnegans Wake is this masterpiece of complexity and depth.
Okay.
And they both reward close attention and patient study.
Ah.
The more time you spend with them, the more you will discover.
So it's like Joyce is saying, look closer. There is more here than meets the eye.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't try to understand the tunk page with a quick glance,
Right.
you can't expect to grasp Finnegans Wake with just a casual read-through.
Right. It's a book that invites you to engage with it.
It does.
And speaking of engagement, Knowles is very adamant that we shouldn't approach Finnegans Wake as just this stuffy academic exercise.
Of course not.
He talks a lot about playfulness.
Right. He does.
Yeah.
One of the most delightful things about Finnegans Wake is its sense of humor.
Okay.
Joyce was a master of wordplay, puns, linguistic games.
Yeah.
He wanted us to have fun with this book.
Yeah. And that playfulness really does come through even in the toughest sections.
It does.
It's like he's winking at us saying, hey, I know this is hard, but let's enjoy the ride.
I love that.
Hmm.
And that's why those nighttime reading sessions were so effective.
Yeah, how so?
When the students relaxed and just allowed themselves to enjoy the sounds of the language,
Mm-hmm.
they started to pick up on the humor and the wordplay
Right.
they might have missed otherwise.
You know, it's like you said before, Finnegans Wake is a book that wants to be experienced,
You
not
gotta-
just analyzed.
It's not a textbook.
And if you can tap into that sense of playfulness, it becomes less about decoding and more about discovery.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So if you are feeling a little daunted by Finnegans Wake, remember,
Okay.
it's okay to have fun with it.
Yes. Have fun.
Laugh at the jokes.
Yes.
Be surprised by the twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
And don't stress if you don't understand everything on the first go.
Right.
It's a journey, not a race.
It is a journey. And as we have learned, it's a journey best taken with friends.
Exactly. Find your community,
Yes.
share your discoveries,
Yeah.
and help each other navigate those choppy waters.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right? It's like he's saying, hey, look, I took these real world places and historical figures and I transformed them into something totally new and strange within the world of the Wake.
It's like we have this secret decoder ring,
We do.
and all of a sudden these hidden layers of meaning start to reveal themselves.
It's pretty amazing.
So we've got all this history woven in.
We do.
But Knowles also mentions that Finnegans Wake is full of metaphors.
Oh, yeah. Tons of them.
It's like Joyce is giving us clues on how to approach the book. So what are some of those clues?
Well, one of the most striking metaphors he uses is that comparison to the tunk page
Yeah.
from the Book of Kells.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Right. And you were asking, like, how is the tunk page a metaphor for Finnegans Wake? Because it's a visual artwork.
Yeah.
So think about it. Like, the tunk page, Finnegans Wake, is a masterpiece of complexity and depth,
Okay.
and they both reward close attention and patient study.
Okay.
The more time you spend with them, the more you discover.
So it's like Joyce is saying, hey, look closer. There's more here than meets the eye.
Exactly. And just like you wouldn't try to understand the tunk page with just a quick glance,
Right.
you can't expect to grasp Finnegans Wake with a casual read-through.
It's a book that invites you to really engage with it.
It does.
And speaking of engagement, Knowles is really adamant that we shouldn't approach Finnegans Wake as just this, like, stuffy academic exercise.
No way.
He talks a lot about approaching it with playfulness.
He does.
Yeah.
You know, one of the most delightful things about Finnegans Wake is its sense of humor.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Joyce was a master of wordplay puns, linguistic games.
Wow.
He wanted us to have fun with this book.
Yeah. And that playfulness comes through even in the toughest sections.
It does.
It's like he's saying, hey, I know this is hard, but let's enjoy the ride.
Exactly. And that's why those nighttime reading sessions were so effective.
How so?
When the students could just relax and allow themselves to enjoy the sounds of the language,
Yeah.
they started to pick up on the humor and the wordplay
Oh.
that they might have missed if they were being super serious.
You know, it's like you said before, Finnegans Wake is a book that wants to be experienced,
Yes.
not just analyzed.
Right.
And if we can tap into that sense of playfulness, it becomes less about decoding and more about discovery.
Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So if you are feeling a little daunted by Finnegans Wake,
I get it.
just remember, it's okay to have fun with it.
Have fun.
Laugh at the jokes, be surprised by the twists and turns,
Yes.
and don't stress if you don't understand everything on the first go.
It's okay.
It's a journey, not a race.
It is a journey.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's best taken with friends.
Right?
Find your community, share your discoveries, and help each other through those choppy waters.
That